What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought to yourself, what is it that rich people know that I don't know? Or what unfair advantage do they have that I don't have? Why is it that I work 60 hours per week at a job that I hate and just barely scrape by, while the rich seem to almost never work at all and are able to live a lifestyle that I can only dream of? Now the truth is, the rich do have an unfair advantage. In fact, they have several of them, but it wasn't always like that, and they didn't actually have these advantages until they became rich. Because life is just like any other game, so as you move through the levels, you gain experience and new mindsets that allow you to continue to get richer while the poor continue to get poorer. So let's start with the first unfair advantage that allows the rich to make more and more money every single day while actually working less. Now the first unfair advantage that the typical rich person has isn't one that you would really expect because it isn't something that people always talk about. And the reality is that rich people tend to get away with things far more often than poor people do. And pretty much everything in the world that we live in is set up to benefit rich people more than poor people. And the truth is that money gives you power. The other day, I was watching some old videos of Rob Ferretti from the Super Speeders channel, where they would drive their Ford GT and their Ferraris and other supercars to outrun the police and do many other crazy things. And some of these guys would get pulled over doing like 110 miles per hour. And after this happened, they would walk away with either no ticket, a warning, or a ticket for like a far lower speed than they were actually going. So what do you think would happen if I were to get pulled over doing like 120 miles per hour in a Prius, which is something that I see people doing like almost daily? As you can imagine, the consequences of doing something like that would probably be pretty bad. But if I were to turn around and do this same exact thing in a Lamborghini or while driving with several other supercar drivers, if I got pulled over, I would probably just get told to slow down. Now, it doesn't always happen like this, but rich people have a sort of unseen power and influence that poor people simply don't have. And this power works really great for getting out of speeding tickets. But this unfair advantage works far better when used to make more money. On my other YouTube channel, when I first started out, nobody knew about the channel and I had zero influence. But as the channel grew larger, I started to get emails from people and companies who wanted to sponsor content on the channel. But I didn't start getting these offers until I was already at a point where I didn't really need the money from them. One of the greatest unfair advantages that rich people have is greater power and influence that can be leveraged to make even more money. Imagine I'm selling a home and two people approach me to buy it. One of them is Joe Blow, who's super poor and can barely afford the home. And the other guy is like a super rich real estate tycoon. Now imagine the rich guy offers to help me become rich like him if I choose to sell my house to him at a discount. Obviously, I'm gonna take his offer and Joe Blow over here isn't going to make any money on my home. Poor people simply don't have the power and the influence that rich people have, which is why it's so much harder for them to make any money. Now next up is the second unfair advantage that your typical rich person has that allows him to get even richer while the poor get poorer. And this advantage is called leverage. Now leverage can also be used to describe power and influence, but the way that I'm using it is a little bit different. And the type of leverage that I'm talking about concerns cold hard cash. Now money is a funny thing because the less of it that you have, the more that you need it, but the less it's willing to work for you. And at the same time, the more money that you have, the less that you need of it and the more that it wants to work for you. The leverage that rich people have when it comes to money is huge, and the more money that they have, the more leverage they have to make even greater fortunes. Imagine you have two guys who both have 20 years of experience playing the stock market, and one of them has $1,000 while the other has $1 million. In this scenario, the guy with $1 million has something like 1,000 times the leverage of the other guy. So say the first guy invests a full $1,000 and he gets a 10% return per year, which nets him like $100 in cold hard cash. Now the second guy invests all of his $1 million and achieves the same 10% return. After a year, the rich guy makes a $100,000 return on his $1 million, which comes out to exactly 1,000 times the amount of money that the poor guy made. This is crazy, and it's the power of leverage. And the more money that you have, the more leverage that you have, or the more confidence that you have, the easier it becomes to generate more confidence. The more that you have of anything, the easier it becomes to obtain more of that thing. Now, the third unfair advantage that rich people have that poor people simply do not have is connections. Now, many of you probably don't know this, but some of the greatest scams in history worked incredibly well because of the connections between rich people. Most people who are wealthy are actually really close with other people who are wealthy because it's very beneficial to have those types of connections. So when a scam gets recommended to one of the guys, he recommends it to the others. And before you know it, you have like 50 rich guys who lost all of their money because they're so well connected. Connections are one of the unfair advantages of the rich because most people tend to form connections with other people who are more like them or people who are rich. And these connections can be extremely powerful when it comes to making more money. Imagine you have a group of like 20 poor people who pool their money together for an investment. A single rich person is going to have as much or even more money than that entire group of 20 poor people. And instinctively, we all know that connections with other people are super important for making a lot of money, but more importantly, connections with other rich people. And the reality is that people who don't have a lot of money are simply not going to have these connections. So it's going to be so much harder for them to make money. These are 3 unfair advantages of the rich that allow them to keep getting richer. And the more that you understand them, the better off you will be on your journey to unlocking your own fortune. And with that said, I'm Julian, this is Business Secrets, and until next time, thanks for watching.